right to vote. So let me just tell you, I lost my job because of COVID-19, and I saw it as an opportunity also to fully be engaged in this election and do my part. So I started working as a poll watcher at the advanced voting at the Lower Roswell Road, Marietta location. I was also a poll monitor during the processing of absentee ballots, and a poll watcher on election day. So let me just tell you what I observed briefly and what raised flags to me that something was wrong as well. Around 10 a.m. on November 5th, I arrived at the State Farm Arena, Fulton County Board of Elections, to witness the vote counting of absentee ballots. Upon arrival, I was not asked to present my credentials, but I identified myself. I was told where to sit, and I sat on a table right in the media cameras, and everybody was right behind me. Shortly thereafter, I just noticed to my right, a young man just with a paper ballot punching in the selections on the ballot on a voting machine. I go, how strange is that? Why not put it through the scanner? So I asked the supervisor, what is he doing? Can you explain to me? And he said, sure, what we're doing right now is after the military ballots or are transcribed on a proper format, or ballots that come in damaged, we try to salvage those, he says. So we're just, transferring them to a new ballot, and then this is we try to salvage those, he says. So we're just, transferring them to a new ballot, and then this is the process, this is the procedure that we're doing. So it's still very strange to me that it would not be put through a scanner, because when this young man was doing that, nobody was verifying what he was doing behind him. So technically, he was voting for someone else on a voting machine, but nobody was, trying to verify what he was doing. So I took video and I took pictures, and I also recorded my conversation with the supervisor with that explanation. I also told them that I noticed that none of the people there had credentials on. And he said, oh, many of them don't have. And that's my brother right there, the one that was doing the voting for someone else. It just seems so out of not following protocol to me, I left shortly thereafter when I heard that the counting was over, the counting of votes was over. So I went to DeKalb County facility. And when I got there, again, I identified myself to another poll watcher who walked me around. This was a very strange facility. All the rooms were whatever was happening there was segregated, and behind closed doors. And I saw that the poll watchers were many feet away from what was happening, not able to observe closely. And I was in the room where the scanners were and the poll watchers were, and 30 feet away. How could they possibly see what's going on? There was another table where they were duplicating the votes, the military votes. And I asked, why are you duplicating those? And I understand that some of the military votes, they vote online, so they had to be in the proper format. Okay, again, nobody was looking at that close enough, to see if they were doing it correctly. I spoke to my fellow poll watchers, and they were very frustrated that they were not able to see. An attorney for the city came to me and said, you need to move. Maybe because I was too close to where the scanners were, behind these glass doors. And so I said, well, I've been a poll monitor, I said, and I was able to move around, walk around. And why is it that the other monitors here or poll watchers are not able to do the same? And I showed him the statute of Georgia that says that we're able to do that. So he looked it over, and came back with some tape, masking tape or some sort of blue tape to put mark on the floor next to the tables where we could then stand and observe closer. But again, this was 2 days after, right? A lot happened before that we were not able to see close enough. So that's what happened. That's what the major observations for me is just appalling, really, what's happened. And I just want to say I'm heartbroken, hurt, appalled, angry at the level of fraud and irregularities that we are witnessing in this election, and especially ashamed that this is happening in the state of Georgia. I ask you to please do your job as elected officials, the job that we have entrusted you to do, and ensure the integrity of the vote for the American people, who on November 3rd, we look forward to casting our votes. Because as of now, we feel completely disenfranchised, and it is as if our vote did not count, was nulled. And I know I speak for the 74 million Americans who voted for Donald J. Trump, the best president this country has ever had. And I'm proud of my country, and I'm speaking from my heart. And what is happening in our country is a travesty, and we cannot allow it. We cannot accept it. So thank you so much for listening to me today and to all of us. Really appreciate it, and I hope that you do the right thing.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your time. Okay, I know that there are some senators that would like to make a statement or two, and I'll allow that, and then we'll close it out after that. So, Senator Parent, I know you wanted to say something, so I'll recognize you now.
Thank you. I'm number 6, am I on? Yeah.
You're on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Well, colleagues, I sort of feel like where I sit that it's kind of like an Alice in Wonderland moment where you've gone down a rabbit hole, and through the looking glass, everything gets wavy and seems really confusing. But to me, that seems like a sort of alternate universe that we don't have a lot of evidence of, frankly. And there's a lot of misinformation or misstatements even being disseminated by some witnesses, probably in good faith. But when you investigate further, you realize that this is really not a surprise, because if you've read the affidavits that have been filed with a lot of these lawsuits, what you will find is that people see things that they think are suspicious, but they do not understand the elections process in Georgia. And once that gets investigated, you find out that what they have actually seen are things unfolding the way that they should be. And I just would like to mention just a couple of those things. First of all, in the video that we were shown, as I mentioned to our Whip Gooch, the Secretary of State has issued many statements about all those things that were raised in the video. And the Secretary of State says our monitor was there. And in fact, since this morning, they've identified the person. It's a young white guy between 25 and 30 wearing a blue jacket that is in the video. That is their monitor that was there the whole time. Some people have filed affidavits not understanding that there is a duplication process when ballots can't be scanned, when they're torn, when they're UOCAVA ballots, because then when they're UOCAVA, Uniformed Overseas Citizen Absentee Voting Act, something like that, people are printing them on home computers at their houses abroad. They have to be duplicated, and there's a procedure for doing that. So you see a lot of these affidavits where people are like, this seems weird, this seems fraudulent, when actually it's the process. The human error raised in DeKalb, there have been, by Mr. Amick, I think, there have been numerous news stories about that. That would have been caught later in the process. If you canvass the vote properly at the county level before you go ahead and submit, you will catch things like that. And that discrepancy would have been identified even without, and I'm not saying he didn't identify discrepancy. He did. It's just that it never rose to the level of being a problem, and there's no evidence that it wouldn't have been caught. So it's not evidence of fraud. You know, people who think, oh, I didn't request an absentee ballot. Well, you're on the rollover list. 600,000 people. You know, so there's just a lot of things where we really need actual evidence of things that are provable, that are widespread irregularities that would rise to the level of having flipped the election. And, you know, we heard a lot about, particularly out of Mayor Giuliani, about the fact that there were far fewer ballots rejected in this election. Well, that is true, because we changed the law. We changed the law after the 2018 election to allow an opportunity to cure. And the laws related to the oath were also changed by this body. So these are all things that have happened. There are some innocent explanations for many of these things. And, you know, this was a very close election, but in the end, the number of ballots and the number of voters matched. After the hand count, they matched. The number of voters and the number of ballots matched, and that has been confirmed numerous times. We did a hand count with the human readable text for the presidential election. We're about to complete our third count. I feel like if we were truly interested in getting to the bottom of a lot of concerns that people have raised, and I do think that those need to be addressed, because faith in our elections is crucial. People do feel that results can't be trusted. That is a problem. You know, first of all, there is the 23 investigators and 250 complaints at the Secretary of State's office. But even aside from that, if we were interested in finding out the truth behind statements being made, we would have a hearing where many of those could be discussed, and we could ask questions of people that have knowledge about how Georgia's election systems are run. And we did not have that. So it seems pretty clear to me that we aren't actually really interested in trying to get to the bottom of some of these complaints. Could our election be run better? Human error does not equal fraud. Bad management does not equal fraud. Of course we need to have secure elections. I'm sure there are myriad ways that you guys think it could be run better, and that I think it could be run better. There are, so let's talk about those. But we do not have evidence of widespread irregularities that would change the election, and that's what you need to really talk about this. I've mentioned it 3 times already today. 40 judges and 40 lawsuits have not found that. Attorney General Barr has not found that. Brad Raffensperger and everyone involved in elections in Georgia have not found that. And with that, we get to this notion that we should seize the power away from the voters. I think we all know, and Senator Heath, Chairman Heath raised it, in order for us to even contemplate doing that, we would have to call a special session and change the law. The governor, speaker, and lieutenant governor have already said, we're not calling a special session. You need 3/5 of the legislature to call a special session. Clearly that's not gonna happen. If these folks have evidence of fraud that would change the election, they can and should present it in the courts and to the Secretary of State's office. People who have the ability to investigate, recommend changes to us, and if there's a big problem, then let's hear it, you know? Then we have to take action. But until we have that, engaging in a lot of these things does more to undermine Georgians' trust in the election than it does to help it. Ever since today started, I have been attacked. The Secretary of State's office has had to take action as it relates to my address. And I've started to get some of the vile things that some of our other colleagues at the Secretary of State's office has. We've given it oxygen. And I think that does a disservice to so many Georgians. You got evidence, show up in court and prove it. That's how it has to be. And in the meantime, we've got OCGA 21-501F, where we have said that the person who gets the most votes is who gets the electors. And do we really want to mess around and have to redo every single one of our own elections too? I'm a little confused about that. Are none of us legitimately elected? Can anyone answer that for me? Do we know? I guess not, if we're not certifying the election. I really appreciate all of you for listening to, from where I sit, I see it. I know we've all gotten blown up since the election. I know that all of you have a lot more than me. Even I have. I know it's hard. I know there's so much pressure. And I know that with the tweets coming out of the White House, it's pretty darn difficult. And when you've got U.S. senators saying, resign, Secretary of State, it's pretty darn difficult to get up and be like, actually, the election was okay. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you the truth. That's pretty hard. I get it. We all are under a lot of political pressure. So I understand where you sit. Thank you for allowing me to make a closing statement, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Brass.
Mr. Chairman, first off, I want to say thank you to you for being willing to hold this hearing, and members of the committee for staying here as long as you did. Regardless if we heard evidence of fraud or not, we owe it to our citizens to find the truth. And what we know is if we dig in and when we do find the truth, there's going to be a large part of this population in this state that is not going to be happy. But the truth is we owe them that. We owe each and every voter in this state an opportunity to see the truth. And again, we keep talking about the fraud, but for me, I want to know was state law followed? And we have heard clear evidence today that state law was not followed time after time after time. And that is a problem. And if state law was not followed in an election, then we do need to keep an open mind on a path forward. Again, you know, we all are under tremendous pressure, all of us, because this is a pivotal point in the state, in this country, and there's no decision that's going to be an easy one. So I pray for each and every one of y'all. I pray for myself that we all make the right decision, but I really pray that we dig in and we find the truth.